Alrighty, so we're going to get into active transport. Now that we've covered passive in the last video and the other types of transport, the last one we got to worry about is active. And the big thing about active transport, this is going to require energy. And so just keep that in mind, that active transport, energy. And so if we think of primary versus secondary active transport, there's a big difference. So in primary active transport, versus secondary active, the big difference is this is going to directly consume energy. And this is being done by the hydrolysis of ATP. While in secondary active transport, the energy is not directly coupled to get energy. And what that means is basically it's kind of trickling energy off from something else. So as we're doing transport, the source of energy is not directly the hydrolysis of ATP. It could be several other processes or something else that's using ATP to transport. So an example of primary active transport is the sodium-potassium ATPase, or the sodium pump. And the way this is basically going to work is, remember how we said we have sodium on the inside, we have potassium on the inside, and the difference is we're looking at 150 millimolars of potassium here, while we have 15 millimolars of sodium on this side. So what's going to happen is for every 3 sodium that's on the inside that's leaving out, we're going to have 2 potassium come back in. And then if we look at the concentrations on the outside for sodium, we now have 150 millimolars of sodium concentration, while in potassium we have 5.5. So if we look at the difference, there's a big difference between the amount of sodium and potassium inside versus outside. Another example of this is the calcium ATPase. And so this guy right here, of course we're going to find it in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, we're going to find it in mitochondria, and some plasmalemma. And if we think about it, this is important because we want to make sure that when we need calcium, we have it available, because calcium is one of those ions that it's not produced, it's just stored and released and taken up again. So just remember that, calcium, we're going to see later, is going to play a big part of, muscle contractions and whatnot. And so just keep in mind, that it's primary active transport that's doing this. And then we also have another example, which is the hydrogen potassium ATPase. And if you think about where hydrogen is important in the body in terms of the most acidic part of your body, you'll find that this ATPase is mainly in your gastric parietal cells in your stomach, and it's also found in specialized cells in the distal tubules of the kidney. So the parietal cells is trying to control the amount of acid so that we can digest food. Now in secondary active transport, there are basically 2 types of transport that can occur. You can have ions go out together or in the same direction, and this is called symport, because sim means same. Or you can have it where it's an antiport, whereas one ion leaves, another one comes in. And as you probably guessed it, this is your antiport. Anti being different. And so the example that can be given is the calcium-sodium exchanger or the sodium-hydrogen exchanger. And so the energy driving this is in the form of the electrochemical gradient from the sodium ions. So as the gradient is created by the sodium ions leaving in and out of the cell, so if we think about the sodium concentration here, this electrochemical gradient that is created based on the difference is supplying the energy for the SIM and the anti-transport. So once again, remember that in the primary active transport, we're having ATPases hydrolyze ATP for this transport. And this electrochemical gradient that's being created is supplying energy for your SIM and your antiports so that these ions can go in and out of the cell. Well, I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like the channel, please subscribe.